Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. Family, I have another story I'd like to share with you. But as I mentioned in a previous video, I want us to keep in mind that when we hear these stories, we've got to figure out a way to redirect our energy and our focus and our strategies when hearing these things. How do we respond? As a matter of fact, I had one of my viewers actually send me an email, and they have an idea. I don't know what the idea is, but I'm glad to hear that some of you are thinking and trying to strategize with us. What can we do to deal with these situations that we continue to face? There's got to be a way. And if we put our thinking caps on, I believe we can come up with a way and maybe cause this whole idea to spread, because what we've been doing is not working. I talked about all of the marching and the begging and the pleading, no justice, no peace, singing, we shall overcome, and all this other stuff. All of these things are not working. You cannot appeal to people with that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that we can all begin to put on our thinking caps on how to navigate through white supremacy. Anyway, the story that I'm about to share with you is about a black man who tried to cash his paycheck, and the bank called the cops on him.
Profiled at a local bank when they refused the cops for trying to cash a check. A man says he was racially profiled at a local bank when they refused to cash his paycheck.
Yeah, I talked to him. He tells me he nearly got arrested, all for trying to cash that paycheck. Tonight he is telling his story only to us in hopes others don't have to go through the same humiliation.
It was highly embarrassing. Highly embarrassing.
What was supposed to be a quick trip to the bank for Paul McCown's turned into what he calls a nightmare, all because he tried to cash his paycheck.
I got a new job. I worked there for about 3 weeks.
It was the first check from the new job. McCown says he went to this Huntington branch on Bidoff Avenue in Brooklyn on December 1st to cash it.
She says you need 2 forms of ID. I said, okay, because I'm not a client at Huntington.
McCown says he provided both his license and social security card. He also gave his fingerprint, which is bank policy. Then he says multiple tellers started challenging the transaction.
They tried to call my employer numerous times. He never picked up the phone.
The paycheck for roughly $1,000 was handed back to McCown's. Tellers said they wouldn't cash it, so he left.
I get in my truck. And, of course, the squad car pulled in front of me. He said, get out the car.
Instead of just letting McCown's go on his way, the teller calls Brooklyn police on him.
He's trying to cash his check, and the check is fraudulent. It does not match our records.
Did you know you called 911?
No.
But the person who made that phone call, that manager, that teller, whoever made that phone call, I feel as though that they were judging.
Minutes after being handcuffed and put in the back of a cop car, police confirmed the check is real. McCown says he believes bank employees profiled him.
My employer said, yes, he works for me. He just started, and yes, my payroll company does pay him that much.
McCown says he cashed that check the next day at another Huntington location with no problems. We reached out to the bank. They tell us there's increased fraud in Brooklyn with 11 cases at this branch in just the last few months. A rep says the tellers were being hyper-vigilant. Brooklyn police tell Cleveland 19 there was no fraud with McCown's case. What response are you hoping to get from them?
I mainly want I want an apology, a sincere apology.
Huntington tells me they did reach out to McCown's, but they say he's not returning their calls. They say they should have confirmed with McCown's employers before calling police. McCown says he wants the bank to change their protocol for non-customers and hopes no one else is treated the way he says he was.
It hurts. It really hurts.
A Huntington rep sent me this statement saying in part, quote, "We accept responsibility for contacting the police as well as our own interactions with Mr. McCown's. Anyone who walks into a Huntington branch should feel welcomed. Regrettably, that did not occur in this instance, and we are very sorry. Huntington says they're working on policy changes and extra education for employees at that branch.
Okay, as you see in this story, another very, very disturbing case of discrimination and profiling and just all kinds of things in this story. Calling the police because you were banking while black. So many different things I could say about this. But how do we navigate through all of this? This is where we need to strategize, family. This is where we need to put on our thinking caps, because at any given moment when we are living while black, these things continue to happen. And we see a lot of people that downplay it as if we don't know what we're talking about, or if it's just all in our heads or whatever. But these are very real realities to us. We experience these things. This is a working man. And in my opinion, that amount, the amount of the check wasn't even enough for them to blink or even sneeze at. But it seems like in their minds, a black man with a check for over $1,000 is too much. Now, I understand if they were having problems with people bringing in fraudulent checks, but I doubt very seriously if they get those red flags when they see a white man who comes in banking. I doubt very seriously if they have that same type of response from the bank. Now, many of you might say, well, how do you know that? We know it. We've experienced it. And I've heard many times where white people will say, well, they've never experienced this type of thing or that type of thing. But when you live this every day, even Jane Elliott, who is a white woman with blue eyes, she did the brown eye, blue eye experiment. Even she says that from the time we are born until the time we die, we are racially profiled and discriminated against. And so there is nothing new here, nothing new under the sun, especially here in this country. The behavior continues. But what we have got to do is learn strategies on how to navigate through all of this. I'm glad that the cops didn't escalate things. It was very bad and, like he said, embarrassing for him to even have to be handcuffed in the first place over something like this. Before even asking questions, there's always this thing where they have to overstep and overreach their dealings with us. My thing is this: if he were a white man, would they have handcuffed him and put him in the back of the police vehicle? Or would they simply have stood there and asked questions? I remember there was a case in Michigan where there was a white man who showed his behind up to these black people's house after their 13-year-old daughter. And the father confronted this man, and he ended up pinning the guy down on the ground. And I don't remember all of the details of the story, but when the cops got there, they were telling them to get back out of the way so that they can talk to this white man, telling the black people who were the victims to get back out of the way so that they can talk to him. But when they deal with us, there's no talking. There's rough handling, and there's handcuffing and putting you in the police vehicle and all of this. And so we are definitely going to have to strategize. I'm glad this brother didn't have to experience anything worse than just being cuffed and all of this and questioned. But in some cases, it actually gets to that point. And those are the things that concern us as a people in this land when there are police encounters. So just wanted to share this story with you, family, as we continue to see them go across the news feeds. We already know that they are going to come. These stories are going to come faster than you can even cover them. They are coming at you. And so strategizing on solutions is what we need to do at this point, because, again, all of the marching and all of that stuff does no good. These people are not trying to hear us in that way. They're not trying to be sympathetic to what we go through, especially when it's at their hands that we go through these things. So there are other strategies that we need to devise, and something that will get their attention, and it's not what you think. Some kind of way we've got to come up with ways that are legal legal ways of navigating through all of this that will cause some type of change, because begging is not working. And of course, if they feel threatened by you, you can just have a cell phone in your hands and they use that and say, well, I thought they had a gun. So I'm not saying any type of uprising of any sort. Okay. But what I am saying is that there has got to be a strategy or a way to deal with this white supremacy in ways that will keep us safe and will keep things the way they are supposed to be, without all of the violence and all of the losing of our dignity or any of that. And if there is a way, then we must think of these things. Whatever it is we must do, we need to figure out ways of navigating through all of this, because we have children, we have families, sisters, brothers, mothers, and fathers that fall victim to this system from time to time, and we don't always like the outcome. Sometimes, in which I see in very rare cases, things they kind of pan out, like the young lady who was having her baby snatched out of her arms. Now, the baby could have been injured and all of that, but you see how the system was against her, and then certain things took place, and then they just kind of threw it all out, and she even got money as a result of that. That turned out great, okay? But there are cases where some of our people are losing their lives over lies, blatant lies. So, again, we've got to strategize, and with that strategizing, of course, those of you who understand what I'm talking about and where I'm coming from, we have got to pray our way through all of this, okay? Those of you who don't agree with that, so be it, that is fine. But I am a firm believer that prayer changes things. I have seen it happen before. I've seen the Most High deal with an enemy or enemies. I've seen him do that. They call it karma. I call it the Most High's justice. I call it the Most High's judgment. I've seen it happen many times. And so that's a whole other lesson for another time. But anyway, I wanted to share the story with you all. And with that, I will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.